Recorder. Baby. Go ahead and get started. Once we start recording. Good to go. Hello and welcome to the Lost Confederacy channel. This is week 1 of the 13-week fiscal program of recovery for American prisoners of war. You have myself, Chief Biko. Today, as always, we have Chief Alligator as well as Chief Quietwater. And here we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. And before we get started off with our readings, definitely want to shout out Copper Empress for yesterday's build. It was a great build. For those that are looking for access to that link, you should all have access. If you have the link, just refresh your browser. That way you'll be able to see the documents from yesterday's build. So if you're in the chat today from yesterday, go ahead and just refresh your browser. You all should have access to that. Without further ado, we'll jump into this Lyndon B. Johnson's video. And again, what we're going to do is continue to highlight how this government will use certain proclamations or propaganda to talk about our group, but never write specifically about our group. So we have to continue to reiterate that until that is something that is well understood, and overstood amongst our people.
Even while President Johnson talked to Chancellor Klaus about America's responsibility in a time of crisis and challenge, word came from Capitol Hill that Congress had passed and sent to the White House the Civil Rights Act of 1968. Included in the measure was a landmark open housing bill, which, when fully effective, would forbid discrimination in approximately 80% of all housing offered for rent or for sale in the United States.
I do not exaggerate when I say that the proudest moments of my presidency have been times such as this, when I have signed into law the promises of a century. I shall never forget that it is more than 100 years ago when Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. But it was a proclamation. It was not a fact. And in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we affirmed through law that men equal under God are also equal when they seek a job, when they go to get a meal in a restaurant, or when they seek lodging for the night in any state in the Union. And now the Negro families no longer suffer the humiliation of being turned away because of their race. In the Civil Rights Act of 1965, we affirmed through law for every citizen in this land the most basic right of democracy, the right of a citizen to vote in an election in his country. In the 5 states where the act had its greater impact, Negro voter registration has already more than doubled. Now with this bill, the voice of justice speaks again. It proclaims that fair housing for all human beings who live in this country is now a part of the American way of life. We all know that the roots of injustice run deep, but violence cannot redress a solitary wrong or remedy a single unfairness. And we just must put our shoulders together and put a stop to both. The time is here Action must be now.
All right. So again, just highlighting the fact that they'll talk about our group. They'll make announcements about our group, but when it comes to the actual laws underneath this government, you will not see our group mentioned. So all of these announcements, all of these proclamations, all of this propaganda is toothless and worthless. So again, talking about piggybacking off of yesterday's bill, we need to establish our own government, our own way of life, our own structure. That way, we don't have to worry about empty promises from a government that has done nothing but attack us, continue to kill us, as well as continue to take our land as well as resources. So without further ado, we'll jump into today's readings. Starting off, we'll have Chief Alligator with this week's American Inventor.
Y'all make me last. Need a couple of minutes.
Got you. I'll jump into this week's Dr. Woodson quote. Go ahead and share my screen. And for this week, I want to choose quote number 12. Let's see, throw my screen up a little bit there. And quote number 12 reads, "The Negro in his present plight, however, does not see possibilities until it is too late. He exercises much hindsight, and for that reason, he loses ground in the hotly contested battles of life. The Negro, as a rule, waits until a thing happens before he tries to avert it." And I wanted to choose this one for this week because I think it speaks true of our mindset as a group. I know yesterday we spoke a lot about, a council, a think tank, great minds coming together to actually have a plan that will lead us into the future. So practicing a lot of foresight rather than hindsight. And I think that's a major step and a major task that we need to implement as a collective if we ever want to continue to prosper. Instead of always being reactive, let's go ahead and try to be proactive. Let's go ahead and set up some protections. Again, having a system where, hey, if something happens within 100 miles, we're all coming together to check on that status or check on exactly what occurred in that aspect. So that's pretty much what I took away from this particular quote. I'll let you build off of that, Chief Quietwater.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And not only having a system, but having a solid system and not letting just anyone come into the system and infiltrate and, shake things up and things like that. Keep it solid from within so we don't have to worry about people from the outside coming in and jacking our stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're not from this land, you will have no voice within our system.
Right.
If you are from this land and you choose to, again, commit basically treason, which is go against your people or try to implement something that is not beneficial to the collective, you are too considered an enemy. So like you stated, just making sure we distinguish those, having those set parameters, those set guidelines to make sure we're in alignment with one another is going to be key. You want to speak on that, Chief Alligator?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward for me. Just poor management. The people are going to go event to event if the managing class isn't laying out a plan for the everyday person to follow. So here we are over 100 years later, and we're still going through that. That's due to poor management.
Correct. Correct. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to Chief Quietwater with this week's legal definition readings as well as maroon historical points.
Okay, legal definitions: number 1, American, indigenous to America. Number 2, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either lineally or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. Number 4, prisoner of war, a person, usually a soldier, who is captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. Number 5, school, an institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. Number 6, education, an enlightening experience. Number 7, recovery, A, return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength, the action of or process of regaining possession of something stolen or lost. And the maroon historical points, number 1 was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Number 2, providing unity and strong defense came first. Number 3, maroon leaders were first and foremost military figures. Number 4, maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. And number 5, maroons knew their European enemies' language, defense, and plans.
Absolutely, absolutely. And are you good to go over there, Chief Alligator, for the invention?
Yep, I'm ready for you. All right, let me see here. Okay, let me make this bigger. Okay. Today's inventor is going to be Henrietta Bradbury. And her federal patent number is going to be US 420-791A. And this patent was issued on May 25th, 1943. And Henrietta Bradbury is from Chicago, Illinois. And this invention relates to bed attachments, especially for use in connection with exposing bedclothes to freshening by air after use. So you can kind of see here, this sits up under the bed, this top figure 1 right here. So when you get up, her design was basically you would pull figure 1 from underneath your bed, and then you would extend it vertically like this. And then you could hang your sheets and different stuff and let it air out during the day. And you can see the mechanisms here that will allow this device to extend vertically so you can air out your bed sheets. So Mrs. Henrietta Bradwell figured out a way how to make sure that bedroom stayed fresh. And as far as I know, her family or the group does not receive a percentage of income from this invention.
Definitely a good one. Definitely a good one for this week.
Never heard of that one. That was a good one.
Same.
And that was Bradbury, B-R-A-D-B-E-R-R-Y.
I'm sorry, Bradbury, B-R-A-D-B-E-R-R-Y.
Okay. Perfect. Now, I know last week we left off on page 4, just to give a quick rundown of what we went over thus far. We definitely got a definition of who the Indians were. That is something that we have not seen in any other document in regards to them defining what who a person is in particular underneath this government. So I'll kind of read that, and it states here, Indian means any person who would be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States as an Indian under Section 1153, Title 18, United States Code. If that person were to commit an offense listed in that section in Indian country to which that section applies. So again, when we're asking the question to, people in the chat, the viewers who watch, after we get off live, where are we within any of these documents? We don't see that. We don't see any Negro, any colored, any Black. And in doing so, we don't even see a definition for Negro, colored, or Black underneath this Constitution, which means they do not exist. So kind of going back off of something Copper Empress said yesterday, Black does not exist. Black caucus is all the same thing as dead. It does not exist within this legal system, within this Constitution. So understanding that and seeing that they can be very specific when they're talking to a group, because we're seeing here that they define what an Indian is, and now they're going to list off the rights of said Indian. And as we kind of read through last week, a lot of the rights were pretty much them having to abide by those United States amendments. Amendment 1, Amendment 2, basically a Bill of Rights and so forth and so on. So as we, understanding that, and as we continue to build upon that, within these readings, just continue to remember in the back of your head, we're still trying to find an entry point for our group of people within this system.
Right. And when you say they, we're going to take the mystery out of they. We're talking specifically about Congress. Congress makes the law for the United States government. So what we're saying is there's no document where Congress gave a lawful definition for what Negro, Black, or colored is. It's done it for the Indian, but Congress has never done it for Negro, Black, and colored. So we don't want to confuse people, because you can go to a Black's Law Dictionary and you may be able to go to a Webster's Dictionary and find a definition. We're being specific. We're saying the Congress of the United States government has never defined what Negro, Black, and colored is. Hence, that's why you never see it in their documents that they vote on.
Absolutely. Correct. Correct. So I'll start us off for this week's readings. Let me blow this up a little bit. How's that look on you all's end? Much better. Good. Okay. So I'll start off here. Number 5, maintain a record of the criminal proceeding, including an audio or other recording of the trial proceeding. D, sentences. In the case of a defendant sentenced in accordance with subsection B and C, a tribal court may require the defendant to serve the sentence in a trial correctional center that has been approved by the Bureau of Indian Affairs for long-term incarceration in accordance with guidelines to be developed by the Bureau of Indian Affairs in consultation with Indian tribes, not later than 180 days after the date of enactment of the Tribal Law and Order Act of 2010. B, in the nearest appropriate federal facility at the expense of the United States pursuant to the Bureau of Prisons Tribal Prisoner Pilot Program described in Section 304C of Tribal Law and Order Act of 2010, in a state or local government approved detention or correctional center pursuant to an agreement between the Indian tribe and the state or local government, or in an alternative rehabilitation center of an Indian tribe, or to serve another alternative form of punishment as determined by the tribal court judge pursuant to tribal law. Definition of offense. In this section, the term offense means a violation of a criminal law. Effect of section. Nothing in this section affects the obligation of the United States or any state government that has been delegated authority by the United States to investigate and prosecute any criminal violation in Indian country. Habeas corpus, section 203. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall be available to any person in a court of the United States to test the legality of his detention by order of an Indian tribe. Section 204, tribal jurisdiction over crimes of domestic violence. So definitions here in this section, dating violence. The term dating violence means violence committed by a person who is or has been in a social relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the victim, as determined by the length of the relationship, the type of relationship, and the frequency of interaction between the persons involved in the relationship. Definition number 2, domestic violence. The term domestic violence means violence committed by a current or former spouse or intimate partner of the victim, by a person with whom the victim shares a child in common, by a person who is cohabitating with or has cohabitated with the victim as a spouse or intimate partner, or by a person similarly situated to a spouse of the victim under the domestic or family violence laws of an Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violence occurs. Definition number 3, Indian country. The term Indian country has the meaning given the term in section 1151 of Title 18 United States Code. Definition 4, participating tribe. The term participating tribe means an Indian tribe that elects to exercise special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction over the Indian country of that Indian tribe. Number 5, protection order. The term protection order, A, means any injunction, restraining order, or other order issued by a civil or criminal court for the purpose of preventing violent or threatening acts or harassment against, sexual violence against, contact or communication with, or physical proximity to another person, and includes any temporary or final order issued by a civil or criminal court, whether obtained by filing an independent action or as a pendent light order in another proceeding, if the civil or criminal order has issued in response to a complaint, petition, or motion filed by or on behalf of a person seeking protection. I'm just going to stop right there. Pretty much it's just giving definitions of certain terms that's going to be brought up within this section, and that section being the tribal jurisdiction over crimes of domestic violence. I think this is key as well to have a little stopping point and kind of build on, just because we know that the family that did split over into Oklahoma, how they were pretty much washed out through people just paying to be considered a tribe member, so it wasn't by blood. Also, we understand that, you know, that Mongoloid feature, Native American, that gets propped up as the Indian today is not truly our family. So again, we having these mixed, this mixed breed of people that are claiming our identity, and now we're seeing how they're having laws that are being put in place as far as domestic relationships. So I think this is just a definitely a key part or important part for us to kind of stop and build on, just an understanding that situation to get that that title of being said, you know, Cherokee or Choctaw underneath this system. You all want to kind of build on that?
I think it goes back, a good point to go back to last night when we were reading through the Iroquois Constitution in regards to how to keep the family protected, to keep the family close, and not to just let someone come in, or, you know, to just going back to what I said earlier, to not letting outsiders come in and then pretty much whitewash your whole existence, basically. And I think that's important in regards to this section.
Yeah, if you can scroll up where you started from, because you did read a lot. So you got two separate parts in here. Yeah, you picked up talking about government to government. So the way I understand this is these tribes are their own government. They have their own tribal courts, and they have their own tribal correctional center. So what this is an agreement between two governments, the United States government, and let's just say the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma. They're now setting up terms and conditions for how they're going to deal with criminals. And the United States government is letting them know, basically, we still have jurisdiction, even though you have a government and you have a tribunal court system, we still can have access to somebody who's committed a crime and fled into your territory. That's what you started off reading today. Maintaining a record of the criminal proceeding, including an audio and other recording of trial proceedings. That's the United States government telling said Indian tribe what you must do so that they can have access to that same information. And then it goes into, when you continue reading, if you scroll down a little bit, under habeas corpus, it's telling what crimes the tribes will have jurisdiction over, meaning the United States government is not going to send one of its agencies from one of its agencies, FBI, CIA, sheriff of a county. They got complete jurisdiction over domestic violence. Those are misdemeanors, right? Dating violence situations, domestic violence with kids, those things, these Indian tribes can handle in-house. That's what they're explaining out right now in that section you were reading. So as we continue to read, we just definitely want to continue to build and just kind of chop it up so we can let the viewer and the people in the chat get a clear understanding of what we're reading as this point, up to this point. So now we're just going to continue to read definitions of stuff that the tribes can handle in-house. These are the definitions that you read now.
Got you. I'll pick up on 6. Special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction. The term special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction means the criminal jurisdiction that a participating tribe may exercise under this section, but could not otherwise exercise. Spouse or intimate partner. The term spouse or intimate partner has the meaning given the term in section 2266 of Title 18 United States Code. Nature of the criminal jurisdiction in general, notwithstanding any other provision of law, in addition to all powers of self-government recognized and affirmed by section 201 and 203, the powers of self-government of a participating tribe include the inherent power of that tribe, which is hereby recognized and affirmed to exercise special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction over all persons. Concurrent jurisdiction, the exercise of special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction by a participating tribe shall be concurrent with the jurisdiction of the United States or of both. Applicability, nothing in this section creates or eliminates any federal or state criminal jurisdiction over Indian country or affects the authority of the United States or any state government that has been delegated authority by the United States to investigate and prosecute a criminal violation in Indian country. And that just pretty much speaks to what you were just breaking down there, Chief Alligator, about still having authority to come within Indian country if need be for certain violations. We got exceptions here. Victim and defendant are both non-Indians. In general, a participating tribe may not exercise special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction over an alleged offense if neither the defendant nor the alleged victim is an Indian. I'm gonna read that one again. In general, a participating tribe may not exercise special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction over an alleged offense if neither the defendant nor the alleged victim is an Indian. So basically, they cannot just have complete control if one of the individuals within the domestic violence case is not an Indian. If they are pretty much a US citizen or other, then it would seem the United States is able to come in and do their own investigation. So it wouldn't just be generally in-house, is what I'm getting from there. Definition of victim. In this subparagraph, and with respect to a criminal proceeding in which a participating tribe exercises special domestic violence, criminal jurisdiction based on a violation of a protection order, the term victim means a person specifically protected by a protection order that the defendant allegedly violated. B, defendant lacks ties to the Indian tribe. A participating tribe may exercise special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction over a defendant only if the defendant resides in Indian country of the participating tribe, is employed in the Indian country of the participating tribe, or is a spouse, intimate partner, or dating partner of a member of the participating tribe, 2, an Indian who resides in the Indian country of the participating tribe. So that's pretty much, again, given that definition of a victim, and then also describing that lack of ties. So if you have no connection to, again, any of these Indian tribes, whether that be a blood connection, a marital connection, or a residential connection, then that is what they're describing as having that lack of ties to the Indian tribe.
Yeah, but it's contradictory if you go back up to that previous page where it says self-government under section B. In general, notwithstanding any other provision of law, in addition to all powers of self-government recognized and affirmed. Clearly, what we're reading is these tribes are not self-governing because everything that they have to adhere to cites back to the United States Code. Yeah, United States Code, Title 18. So on one hand, they're telling you you're self-governing, but they're giving you terms and conditions based on the people within your tribes, based on the crime they commit, you know, what jurisdiction you have. So again, you can't run your own show and then have terms and conditions as to how you run your show. So this whole idea that they're self-governing is really smoke and mirrors as you start getting into these terms and these definitions. You know, the United States government is, you're telling them what to do and you're being very specific with the circumstances and the situations. You were reading kind of extradition situations, and what you were reading where basically the United States government is saying, okay, say somebody is a member of your tribe and they commit a domestic violence act, or say somebody is a member of your tribe, but they commit a domestic violence under a state territory. That's basically, they're saying we still have the right to come get that person to come extradite them. So your jurisdiction really isn't a jurisdiction because they can come get you.
And that just goes back to most of the documents that we have read. It's been the same thing. You know, they're putting all of this stuff in writing, but at the same time, someone else is still over you for making the decisions that you want to make, basically.
Correct. So again, that sovereignty claim is really just a title in itself, but doesn't have any like real teeth. It doesn't really mean anything if you're still superseded by the United States government.
Right. Yeah. Self-government is just a term used. Where we at? I'll pick up on the next part.
C, criminal conduct.
Okay. Criminal conduct. A participating tribe may exercise special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction over a defendant for criminal conduct that falls into one or more of the following categories. 1, domestic violence and dating violence. An act of domestic violence or dating violence that occurs in the Indian country of the participating tribe. 2, violations of protection orders, an act that A, occurs in the Indian country of the participating tribe and violates the portion of a protection order that prohibits or provides protection against violent or threatening acts or harassment against sexual violence, against contact or communication with or physical proximity to another person. So yeah, they only have jurisdiction over domestic violence cases up until this point. That's basically what the United States government is telling them. Fighting between couples, y'all can handle that in-house. So Section 2 was issued against the defendant. Section 3 is enforceable by the participating tribe, and Section 4 is consistent with Section 2265 of Title 18 United States Code. This is what I was saying earlier. Everything is citing back to United States Code. You're not self-governing because you're having to defer back to somebody else's playbook. So they're propped up. They're propped up forms of government that are not self-governing because any issues are ultimately going to come back to the United States Code. So if we take China, for example, China doesn't adhere to the United States Code. Russia could care less about United States Code. So that's how we have to understand this, that these civilized tribes, they are not the alpha and the omega of their people. They're not truly self-governing. The parent company is the United States government. These Indian tribes are divisions up under that parent company. Anything y'all want to share on that?
Definitely want to just highlight, yeah, they're again just contradicting themselves by saying, yeah, you can, handle the domestic offenses, the domestic violence offenses, but in handling, they still have to be consistent with our codes. So you're telling us we can do one thing, but on the other hand, you're saying we can only do it if it's consistent with our own United States codes that we have established. So like you're stating, you're not self-governing. You can't run anything unless you run it by us first. Or it has to be at least congruent with what we have in place.
And I'm wondering, why did they just only pick domestic things? Why do you guys think?
Don't know yet. We'll continue to read and find out, but they're definitely, yeah, those are misdemeanor situations, and we'll find out more as we continue to read it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get into the rights of defendants in a criminal proceeding in which a participating tribe exercises special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction. The participating tribe shall provide the defendant all applicable rights under this act. If a term of imprisonment of any length may be imposed, all rights described in section 202, the right to a trial by an impartial jury that is drawn from sources that reflect a fair cross-section of the community. And B, do not systematically exclude any distinctive group in the community, including non-Indians, and all other rights whose protection is necessary under the Constitution of the United States in order for Congress to recognize and affirm the inherent power of the participating tribe to exercise special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction over the defendant. That's a mic drop right there. That just verifies not only does it have to adhere to the Constitution of the United States, which is a separate government, it also has to adhere to their Congress. So when you run that parallel with the person that's called through media and news propaganda, the Negro, black, and colored, what we're saying is there is no documentation where the United States Constitution and Congress specifically defines the Negro, black, or colored.
Right.
You're in lawful and legal no man's land. And we didn't mention it at the beginning of this video, but also keep in mind this Civil Rights Act of 1968 is 1 week after Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. So it's very interesting how I went through 12 years of schooling and 4 years of high school and never heard the timeline associated with the civil rights documents with the civil rights leaders of that time. Because the story would have made a lot more sense had you told me that King was murdered on April 4th, and then April 11th, Congress issues this act.
Right, and the fact that it was the Indian Rights Act and not just the Civil Rights Act, I think that's key as well. That they just, well, I think that we just didn't know that it was actually the Indian Rights Act. I think that's big for me because I would have never known that until we got up to this point.
Okay, so then we're giving people a pass if we take that position and say, well, our people didn't know. That's why we were never told coming through school. I'm going to say they do know. I'm going to say those leaders that were in that room when Lyndon Baines Johnson signed this document, they knew who was getting rights. The sad part is you went 60 years lying about who got rights after King was assassinated. Because see, we run around and we think all we're taught is Civil Rights Act. Yeah, that pertained to us, but we don't really know that, oh, if you read the document, it don't pertain to you. If you think you're Negro, black, and colored. Because those words aren't in the document. Then we get to the 1968 Civil Rights Act, a week after King is killed, and it's for Indians. And up until this point, they're given special jurisdiction over domestic violence cases to Indians. So we're going to see what other special jurisdiction that the United States government is given to said Indians as we move forward. But why were we never told this from people who look like us, that are quote unquote teachers? Is the question we should be asking.
Right, definitely, for sure.
So petitions to stay detention. In general, a person who has filed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus in a court of the United States under Section 203 may petition that court to stay further detention of that person by the participating tribe. Grant of stay, a court shall grant a stay described in paragraph 1 if the court finds that there is a substantial likelihood that the habeas corpus petition will be granted, and after giving each alleged victim in the matter an opportunity to be heard, finds by clear and convincing evidence that under conditions imposed by the court, the petitioner is not likely to flee or pose a danger to any person or the community if released. So again, two governments are talking about how they're going to deal with their prisoners. And they're explaining in a habeas corpus situation, if it's filed under the United States, does that court say, no, this person is going to stay under our jurisdiction and we're going to try them under United States government's codes? Or does the Indian tribe get a chance to bring that person back under their tribunal court and try them under theirs? That's all they're really saying right now. What situations will have a grant to stay? What situations won't? Anything y'all want to say on this part right here before I keep going?
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So I am on subsection A or B. Notice, okay. Section 3, notice, an Indian tribe that has ordered the detention of any person has a duty to timely notify such person of his rights and privileges under this subsection and under subsection 203. Grants to tribal governments. The Attorney General may award grants to the governments of Indian tribes or to authorize designees of those governments to strengthen tribal criminal justice systems, to assist Indian tribes in exercising special domestic violence, criminal jurisdiction, including law enforcement, including the capacity of law enforcement or court personnel to enter information into and obtain information from National Crime Information Database. Boom. So the Attorney General for the United States government can give grants only to better their system to give them access to United States government's databases. So we'll front you money so you can have access to our stuff. Because again, they're trying to track criminals. The United States government is saying, we really don't care where in North America you commit a crime. Yeah, we told you that you self-governing over here, but we need to be able to track you whether you in Indian territory or whether you in under state territory. A lawful enforcement, including the capacity of law enforcement or court personnel to enter information into and obtain information from National Crime Information Databases, protection, trial and appellate courts, probation systems, detention and correctional facilities, alternative rehabilitation centers, culturally appropriate services and assistance for victims and their families. So the United States government will grant money for all of these things, access to all court records, and also to the assistance for victims. And so I guess that's like housing people, like if they afraid to go back to live with the person that's committing violence on them, the United States government will give grant money to the Indian tribe so they can have a safe house for those people to live in while they're going through their court proceeding. Criminal codes and rules of criminal procedure, appellate procedure, and evidence to provide indigent criminal defendants with the effective assistance of licensed defense counsel at no cost to the defendant in criminal proceedings in which a participating tribe prosecutes a crime of domestic violence or dating violence or a criminal violation of a protection order. To ensure that in criminal proceedings in which a participating tribe exercises special domestic violence, criminal jurisdiction, jurors are summoned, selected, and instructed in a manner consistent with all applicable requirements, and to accord victims of domestic violence, dating violence, and violation of protection orders rights that are similar to rights of a crime victim described in section 3771 of Title 18 United States Code. So all of this keeps going back to Title 18 of the United States Code. Everything that they're allowing them to do. Y'all want to, anything y'all want to input right here?
I think it's pretty clear. I mean, it's just going through just, you know, what they will allow and not allow.
I would say it goes back to what we was talking about yesterday as well about allowing certain people to have a voice within our system. If they were truly sovereign, they wouldn't allow the United States to have any voice in regards to how they're going to run their government structure.
Mm-hmm.
But they aren't sovereign, so they continue to have to, again, revert back to this United States Code, Title 18. So again, you're cool if you want, or it was something within the document we read yesterday where, yeah, you can have a seat, but you won't have a voice. You won't speak. None of your certain tasks or anything, your ideas that you want to implement will be heard. You're just there to sit and be observed to, and you will only speak when spoken to type of situation. Versus this, we're seeing that, hey, you guys will speak when you're spoken to, or pretty much it's in reverse. Like, hey, you guys can do whatever you want, but as long as if anything is not concurrent with this United States code, then you can't do that because you're still within our jurisdiction. So it's just definitely a 180 from what we saw last night, I would say.
Yeah, we gotta, I'm looking at bigger picture. The more our group of people wake up, because we're the ones that are lost in law and lost legally under color of law. When we wake up, we're never supposed to realize that the 5 civilized tribes in Oklahoma are fake. That's why they're not self-governing. The United States government knew that when they put them in Oklahoma.
Got you.
So it's
Wow.
key for us we have to recover and remember that we're the de jure descendants of Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw.
Mhm.
So the fact that they came up with make-believe nations, and Copper Empress said something last night that is absolutely true, and they confirmed that in the 1866 Indian Treaty hearings that they had the first time ever, that they have memberships in those fake tribes. That's further proof that it's not de jure. It's no different than a fraternity. You got membership dues and fees.
I mean, even the people who were in those meetings, the people that were speaking at the hearings, they're definitely they were European.
Yeah. One of them even
So,
mentioned it was from his bloodline came from Asia. So like
wow.
you said, yeah,
Yeah, Asian too.
You're just paying for a name, a title. And like you stated, that's just more just nail in the coffin that these are fake tribes or fake nations pretending to be us.
Mhm.
So they split.
More specific, they're political. These fake 5 civilized tribes are really for political reasons.
Correct.
Because it's a political affiliation. So what we're saying is, you can't be a member of our family of the real Cherokee. Yeah, you can't. There's no dues you can pay to say, hey, I'm Cherokee. But that's what they got going on in Oklahoma. And so since you signed up for that back in 1830 all the way through the 1900s, don't complain when you got to dance to the United States government. Because remember, you're not who you say you are.
Right.
This is political war against the real American, which is us. And we're pulling the sheets off of the whole thing saying, look, there's no Negro, black, and colored in law from Congress. So why we still use words?
And even the section that I had read yesterday about symbolism, they had tangible things that they would pass down. So you knew exactly where that came from. Everyone had something tangible from their tribe or their clan or whatever that passed down through the generations. So you wouldn't be able to just come in and say, hey, I'm a part of this, or hey, can I have a membership into your group? If you didn't have that, what was it, the shells and strings, then you weren't part of it.
And even going back to that 1866 Indian treaty hearing, they're talking about treaties that aren't being upheld, but the United States government is like, motherfucker, your family wasn't even a part of them treaties. So why are you bringing up stuff that you have no business, like that has nothing to do with you? Stay in your lane, be the political Cherokee Nation, Choctaw, Seminole, because what you're trying to bring up has nothing to do with you. That is the Negro, the Black, the reclassified African American. If they want to bring that stuff up, okay, we'll have a conversation. But you all know, you again play your role, play your position, and be quiet, because those have nothing to do with your particular lineage.
Yeah.
And I just want to be specific. When we're talking about treaties, there's a lot of talk about the United States government not upholding treaty. I want to be very clear, and what we've proved via proof of claim, it's not that the United States government is not honoring its treaties. It's the fact that they're all unlawful treaties, because in order to have a treaty, you have to have a declaration of war first. That's what we're showing. Damn the reason that they have it. They don't have to adhere to a treaty that's unlawful. So when we went through the Seminole Wars on this channel, we're showing treaties that Congress never signed. Congress makes their law. So that means that all of the people in Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, that had to go into Oklahoma, even though they can show you a treaty of Payne's Landing or a treaty at Fort Gibson, what we're saying is Congress never signed the shit.
Right.
So they never declared a war. Any treaties during that time period are fake. So what we're proving as well is the 1866 treaties are fake because they can't prove where they declared a civil war.
Which I think, you know, with people knowing that all this junk was just made up and fake, that we don't have to adhere to anything. And if we were all on that same page, I just think things would definitely be different for us, you know, just again, knowing this information.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'll get into section G real quick. Supplement, not supplant. Amounts made available under this section shall supplement and not supplant any other federal, state, tribal, or local government amounts made available to carry out activities described in this section. We need to look up those two words, supplement, supplant, because that sounds like they're giving the attorney general an out. Because remember, the attorney general will grant them money to do all these things to better, you know, track down domestic violence cases. What's the difference between supplement and supplant? Those two.
So supplant is to replace, is to supersede and replace, and supplement would be what, to add to?
Yeah.
What?
So pretty much whatever we're talking about as far as any type of monetary or resources, this is just going to add on to whatever we've already discussed previously. This won't supplant or remove those of the previous resources we talked about.
Got you. So they're going to front them some more. Okay. So subsection H, authorization of appropriations. There are authorized to be appropriated $5 million for each of fiscal years 2014 through 2018 to carry out subsection F and to provide training, technical assistance, data collection, and evaluation of the criminal justice system of participating tribes. So we can clearly see, and I'm gonna let you pick up, Chief Quietwater, on the next reading. We can clearly see what this United States government is invested in. It's invested in incarceration of people. It will give you $5 million to align your criminal system as far as court records, running people's backgrounds, things of that nature. Yeah, we'll grant you money to get you in order with our system, because we got the best tracking system on planet Earth. That's why we incarcerate more people on planet Earth than any other government. So we need to get you up to speed, even if it's $5 million for each of fiscal years from 2014 to 2018.
Yeah, and it shows today too. Well, we talk about the cop city in East Atlanta. They'll pump resources when it comes to locking up people and getting that free labor out of them. But when it comes to other type of resources for any type of progressive stuff, yeah, it really hesitant to pump any money into that. So yeah, that's a great call out.
And their plan was to the T, because this was back in 1968, and fast forward, look at how many of us are incarcerated. So yeah. Okay, so I'll start here. Note effective October 1st, 2022, section 804 of Division W of Public Law 117-103 provides for amendments to section 204. Upon such date, section 204 as so amended will read as follows. So section 204, the tribal jurisdiction over covered crimes. A, definitions in this section. Number one, assault of tribal justice personnel. The term assault of tribal justice personnel mean any violation of the criminal law of the Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violation occurs that involves the use, attempted use, or threatened use of physical force against an individual authorized to act for or on behalf of the Indian tribe or serving that Indian tribe during or because the performance or duties of that individual in A, preventing, detecting, investigating, making arrests, relating to making apprehensions for or prosecuting a covered crime. B, adjudicating, participating in the adjudication of or supporting the adjudication of a covered crime. C, detaining, providing supervision, where am I at? Supervision for or providing, it keeps going up. Are you doing that?
My bad. It should be good now.
Okay. Detaining, providing supervision for, or providing services for persons charged with the covered crime, or incarcerating, supervising, providing treatment for, providing rehabilitation services for, or providing reentry services for persons convicted of a covered crime. So like you said, they're definitely putting the master plan together for the incarceration system. Number 2, child. The term child means a person who has not attained the lesser of A, the age of 18, B, except in the case of sexual abuse, the age specified by the criminal law of the Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violations occur.
Hold on 1 second. Pause right there.
Mm-hmm.
This is a prime example of why we're broken as a group of people. This is why having self-government is important. We don't even have jurisdiction over our own children.
Right.
Like, for real. We do not have something collectively where it describes what the lawful definition of a child is, what we consider that age to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And saying that we have jurisdiction over our children. We lose jurisdiction the moment they come out of you. The moment they come out of you, and we've never talked about this process, but we got a little echo. As soon as you come out of the womb, you become property of vital statistics, because that birth certificate is a document owned by vital statistics. So you've already given over jurisdiction. I'm talking about our people now, because I'm just running parallel. At least the Indian, what we're about to read is the definition of their children. I'm just comparing it with the invisible Negro, Black, and colored person. The moment we come out of our mama's womb, we are property of vital statistics. They are the ones that house birth certificate records. Then it takes 6 months of maturity for the Social Security Administration to issue a Social Security card to that child. But when you read the back of that card, it's not their Social Security number. That's property of Social Security Administration. So you've attached 2 agencies to your child by the time that child is 6 months old. I don't know by heart when the state comes in, and that's probably going to vary state to state because each state has its own constitution. But this is going to be interesting as we read this, because we literally, the mothers and the fathers of our children, we don't have control over our children. We literally have given jurisdiction to foreigners over our children. So I'm looking to learn, what power does Indian tribes have over their kids in relation to what we have? We don't have power. We've been reduced to privileges. You get the privilege to raise your child, assuming that you do X, Y, Z, or the state can issue through the agency of Department of Human Resources, its DFAC services to come take said child. So this is something that I'm curious to get into. Y'all want to build on that before Chief Quietwater get back in?
No, it's going to be interesting to read through here. Yeah, like you said, we definitely turn our kids over to the state as soon as they're born. So, or to the state, or to the state.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting as well, like you stated, them having the power to decide what age would be considered legal within, this Indian territory. And that's pretty much I'm guessing, per nation as well.
Mhm. Okay, so number 3, child violence. The term child violence means the use, threatened use, or attempted use of violence against a child prescribed by the criminal law of the Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violation occurs. Excuse me. Number 4, coercion, commercial sex act. The terms coercion and commercial sex act have the meaning given the terms in section 1591E of Title 18 United States Code. Number 5, covered crimes. The term covered crimes mean A, assault of tribal justice personnel, B, child violence, C, dating violence, D, domestic violence, E, obstruction of justice, F, sexual violence, G, sex trafficking, H, stalking, I, a violation or a protection order. Were you about to say something?
Oh, no.
Okay.
We don't have anything for child violence as a group of people. That's the definition that you read on the previous page. And that's really sad as a father, and for those that are mothers and fathers as well. That's something to think about, y'all.
Yeah.
Negro, Black, and color is not in law. And at least we can see an outline document of what self-governing looks like.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even defined what we consider child abuse. Damn what the European thinks. Damn what the Asian thinks. What do we consider child abuse? We don't have a standard for our own kids. We're letting another group of people tell us what child abuse is. That's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Number 6, dating violence. The term dating violence means any violence of the criminal law of the Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violation occurs that is committed by a person who is or has been in a social relationship of a romantic or intimate nature with the victim as determined by the length of the relationship, the type of relationship, and the frequency of interaction between the persons involved in the relationship. Domestic violence. The term domestic violence means any violation of the criminal law of the Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violation occurs that is committed by a current or formal spouse or intimate partner of the victim, B, a person with whom the victim shares a child in common, C, a person who is cohabiting with or has cohabited with the victim of a spouse or intimate partner, or D, a person similarly situated to a spouse of the victim under the domestic or family violence law of the Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violation occurs. They're real big on the domestic stuff.
Right. And the fact that we don't even have something defined for our own people in those situations is very interesting. It shows our
lack of structure.
Yeah, big time. Like we don't even have this. Now, I'm curious on this. I wonder, somebody who's born on the Indian tribe, and I'm hopefully somebody in the chat can share on this. If you grew up on an Indian tribe and you had a child out of wedlock, would you have to go through the United States government's child support services? That will answer the question of, does the United States government revert matters back to the parent company? If you have a child and go through divorce or were never married and you live on a reservation, do you pay child support through the United States federal government child support services? That's going to determine whether you self-governing when it comes to your kids right there, even if you're on a reservation.
That's a good question. Very good. Okay. let's see, where did I leave off? 8, Indian country. The term Indian country has the meaning given the term in section 1115 of Title 18 United States Code. 9, obstruction of justice. The term obstruction of justice means any violation of the criminal law of the Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violation occurs that involves interfering with the administration or due process of the laws of the Indian tribe, including any tribal criminal proceedings or investigation of a crime. Number 10, participating tribe. The term participating tribe means an Indian tribe that elects to exercise special tribal criminal jurisdiction over the Indian country of that Indian nation. What does that mean? Participating tribe, that it's an Indian tribe that elects to exercise special tribal criminal. What does that mean, that the participating tribe would have jurisdiction? Well, I guess it's clear, over the Indian country.
Right. The only thing that gives them special jurisdiction. The only thing that gives them special jurisdiction, tribe to tribe, is the domestic violence case. That's the entry point that allows them special jurisdiction.
Makes sense.
All right. And 11, protection order. The term protection order, A, means any injunction, restraining order, or other order issued by a civil or criminal court for the purpose of preventing violent or threatening acts or harassment against, sexual violence against, contact or communication with, or physical proximity to another person. And B, includes any temporary or final order issued by a civil or criminal court, whether obtained by filing an independent action or as a pendant light order in another proceeding, if the civil or criminal order was issued in response to a complaint, petition, or motion filed by or on behalf of the person seeking protection. Number 12.
They've had a lot of violence within these.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Because they're being very detailed about different cases and circumstances that they've seen. So they're crossing a lot of T's and a lot of I's. But even with them being subordinate to the United States government, when we compare ourselves to these Indian tribes, we can see that the supposed Negro, Black, and colored, legally and lawfully, that do not exist, they don't even have this structure. You see, our women can't say, hey, here's what we determine to be sexual violence or domestic. Right. We're letting other people define what that is for us. So that makes us imbeciles at law, and that makes us incompetent to handle our affairs.
Yeah.
Definition of minority, you can't handle anything.
Right. Okay. 13, sexual violence. The term sexual violence means any non-consensual sexual act or contact prescribed by the criminal law of the Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violation occurs, including in any case in which the victim lacks the capacity to consent to the act. Number 14, special tribal criminal jurisdiction. The term special tribal criminal jurisdiction means the criminal jurisdiction that a participating tribe may exercise under this section, but could not otherwise exercise. Okay. 15, spouse or intimate partner. The term spouse or intimate partner has the meaning given the term in the section 2266 of Title 18 United States Code. So that refers back to the United States Code. 16, stalking. The term stalking means engaging in any course of conduct directed at a specific person prescribed by the criminal law of the Indian tribe that has jurisdiction over the Indian country where the violation occurs that would cause a reasonable person to fear for the person's safety or the safety of others, or B, to suffer substantial emotional distress. All right. Y'all want to build on any of that? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, just lack of define. We don't have any definition.
Right.
There's nothing, we don't have anything defined amongst ourselves as a group. So they'll tell us that you're a US citizen, but you're not federally recognized.
Right.
And we were talking yesterday, I had brought something to Chief Biko's attention about the Dred Scott case. That's a case that's cited to by a lot of our scholars in the fact that it's never been overturned. But it's never been overturned because the Supreme Court of the United States is actually correct in its findings if you understand history. The Negro, Black, and Colored was never recognized under United States government law. The founders that wrote the Constitution never intended for you to be a citizen of the United States government. So that court was correct. Now here we are in 2023. You're told you were made citizens in the 1960s of the United States government. You don't have a document. No family member has a document where you got citizenship. None of the Civil Rights Act laws in the 1960s specifically say Negro, Black, and Colored. And so here we are in 2023 wondering why the federal government never cites to that specific group for any federal protection or any specific resources. You're still on the outside looking in, i.e. prisoner of war, because you were denationalized and they propped up some fake 5 nations in Oklahoma, gave them the birthright, maintained jurisdiction over them to keep them in check. And this show was supposed to go on for another 400 years before the Negro figures out what happened in the 1960s. You never were included specifically, y'all.
And also the fact that this document has been recently amended in, what was it, October 2022?
Yep.
And still haven't included or changed any language to include us. So they're specific with everything else, but can still, even after the amendments that have happened throughout these years, still can't include us in it.
And Michelle is asking in the chat for the email. The email address, Michelle, is on the About section of the channel. But if you want to put the email address, Chief Quietwater, in the chat, she has some information on Dred Scott. The only other point that I'm going to add on Dred Scott is the Supreme Court opinion says you can have rights at the state level. That's not the same as having federal rights. And that's what we've been explaining through the whole Jim Crow era, how states were banning the Negro, Black, and Colored, but the federal government never recognized Negro, Black, and Colored. So when we read these documents and do it in chronological order, it's going to hurt a lot of egos, but it's the truth. We were operating out of confederacies. We went over that last night on Copper Emperor's channel. We really got to understand that we had a separate government. The United States used that document that we read last night and created their own constitution and their own Bill of Rights. It had nothing to do with us. And we've walked through that timeline, and it's just amazing how we're taught through school that this was our entry point, the Civil War. Then you read and find out, damn, there really was no Civil War. It was really unlawful Seminole wars and unlawful wars during the Indian Removal Act. The shit popped off in 1830 when the United States government said they're going to start moving Americans west of the Mississippi. You got unlawful wars all the way up into the 1960s. And they never righted that wrong because the federal government has never recognized Negro, Black, and Colored.
And I just want to highlight one thing you said earlier too, is like, as far as like, we have no definitions of anything. Like, we don't define anything that pertains to us. So when we say things like, you know, prisoner of war, you know, some may think, oh, we not that because we're not caged up with tin cans, drinking from, you know, the ceiling, the leaks from the ceiling type of shit. Because just because you may have certain privileges, like you stated earlier, you have the privilege to raise your child, doesn't mean you have control or jurisdiction over your child. Just because you have the appearance of citizenship doesn't mean you're an actual citizen. Like you stated earlier, where are the documents where our grandparents, our parents became a citizen? We know that when individuals come over here, immigrants with the I come over here and apply to be a US citizen, they have actual citizenship papers. Where are our papers if we are actual citizens? You don't have that. A social security number, social security card is not stating that you're a citizen. Your birth certificate is not stating that you're a citizen. So again, we have to ask these questions. Where are these documents if we are these said citizens? And like you mentioned in that Dred Scott case, it said, yeah, you may have footing as a citizen, meaning, yeah, you may have a footing, meaning you have those privileges, but that doesn't mean that you are considered a United States citizen. And like you said, we have to understand these documents, actually comprehend them and see exactly what they're stating, because they're saying a lot within these documents. They're telling us, hey, you all aren't part of our system. You will never be a part of our system. Stop trying to be a part of our system and leave it at that. And we have our Holly School continue to try to fight to be a part of some shit that was never supposed to be meant for us.
Which really makes no sense, because we're not part of the system, because it's really our system that they took.
Correct. Took and then manipulated it or tweaked it to fit
Right.
the structure.
Right.
It's like we're trying to play a PlayStation 2 game on an Xbox. That shit ain't going to work.
Right.
It's not formatted for that. So why are you trying to play your game in our system?
Exactly.
Work. Just plain and simple. That's exactly how it is. So instead of trying to play our PlayStation 2 in their system, how about we go ahead and just create our own system?
Exactly.
All our shit works for us, and then we can exclude anything we want to, instead of being it vice versa.
Definitely agree. We gonna continue, or are we finishing up?
Where you at?
Yeah, where do we stop? You remember? I think
right here at nature of criminal jurisdiction.
Okay, so B. Okay, we can stop it, and that'll be a good stopping point. I'll notate this.
Okay.
Page 10. Yeah, definitely. Again, shout out to the folks in the chat for vibing with us. We're gonna continue to break down this document, and again, just continue to ask the questions and see if we can find ourselves in these documents, and again, try to reestablish our own government, because we see obviously that this stuff is not meant for us. We can already tell now. We're not going to see anything talking about Negro, color to black, none of that. So instead of us continuing to try to force ourselves into a puzzle that does not have our piece, why don't we create our own puzzle, or recreate our own puzzle, and then have a conversation?
Right.
Yeah, and it's not, what I would say is it's not that hard. We have the templates. The template, we went over the template last night, which was the Confederacy Constitution. It really just boils down to, because we're reading about children and domestic violence, for example, it takes the woman of our group to have a mastermind. You've got the template of the Iroquois Confederacy document, and then you write down collectively, what do y'all think child abuse is, or what spousal abuse is? And then the men do the same thing, write your own template. It's really just that simple to create something. We're not creating from scratch.
Right.
It's no different than what a law firm does. A law firm has a template. The first time they do a case, they got a template of a document. They can reuse it and just put a new name in. So let's take the boogeyman out of this. Like, we can't create our own procedures and our own rules for our people. We've got the templated documents. It's just a matter of us sitting down and actually coming up, what does it mean to us? And I'm speaking specifically to the women right now. Your sons are mass incarcerated by foreigners. It won't stop until you and the fathers sit down and say, what do we call child abuse? Damn, what the state's government talking about? It's really just that simple. Anything you want to share on that?
I just think it just has to be, again, the structure. I think it has to be a collective group of us that have the same vision and the same, we're on the same path. Like, there are so many different groups of people that are trying to do almost the same thing, but it's just all over the place. But yeah, that would be where it starts with the women to come together and, you know, like a mastermind group to, because it is our children who are being killed and incarcerated and, you know, just ripped from us. So it does start from us. And we read that last night with the Iroquois Confederacy Constitution. So we have to get on the same page, and then everything else follows.
Right. And shout out to Michelle in the chat. She just gave the definition for parent. And that's something that us as fathers and mothers, this is something we can do. And her second definition, it says, in law, it refers to the public policy power of the state. The state shouldn't have jurisdiction. We could write something up where if something happens between the mother and the father, the next of immediate kin would have jurisdiction. And then if the next immediate kin is not available for jurisdiction, it can go to a cousin, or it can go to, in other words, we can go so far down that line before the state gets involved.
Right.
Right. But we have to set the parameters. Right now, they've got it where as soon as we come out of y'all, vital statistics is right on your ass. They've already. So this is a good build today, because now it's starting to hit closer to home. But this work is not hard, y'all, to create our own. We have enough documents and enough templates out here that all we have to do is start asking ourselves, what does it mean to us? How will we like to run stuff? We can take the good from the United States government. We can take the good from a Confederacy document. We can take the good from an Indian tribe, and we can add that to ours, and then we can discard the bad. It's just that simple. But without any type of order amongst ourselves, that's why we're mass incarcerated. We're mass incarcerated because we as adults have not written strict rules for what we consider to be violations of our kids. Chief Biko, anything you want to say on that?
No, I think both of y'all said it already. Yeah, we have to get that structure. And like you said, once we have the template or the skeleton, then everything else is easy. We could just start implementing, because it's going to be pretty much the same procedure. That's what they've done. Whenever you're looking at different branches underneath their government, it's pretty much going to be the same structure. You're going to see a commissioner, an agent. Certain things are going to parallel from each branch or each jurisdiction underneath that particular government. That's the same thing that pretty much you'll find across the board with any other government. So again, once we have that structure, and again, sit down and say what we want as a group, what we want as a people, and then it just becomes easy. Just again, using that same template and just inputting what we want in particular.
And you do understand that collapses this government.
Absolutely.
If we take our kids out of their system, it collapses. We have to visualize how many agencies are built off of incriminating our kids. You got probation, you got anger management facilities, you got all these different facilities that are able to extract resources from you based on what they say is a crime.
Correct.
So
I mean, they start studying young Black boys in the 3rd grade to determine how many prisons to actually build, projecting in the future.
There you go. So if we, so us organizing will automatically start to dissolve some of the government. And so that's not going to be in some of the people who look like us best interest, unfortunately, right? Somebody has a job at that anger management facility or that DUI school. You follow me? Still, you're going to have to find another group of people to mass incarcerate. That's, again, we're going back to the bill last night. First law of nature is self-preservation. We don't give a fuck what you do with your system. All we saying is you're no longer going to mass incarcerate our kids.
Facts.
You're no longer going to house our kids in your state. What do they call it? when neither parent is available. What does the state call that? What's the name of that facility?
Not adoptive homes.
You mean ward, oh, the facility, orphanage?
Yeah.
Orphanage.
Or being a ward of the state?
Yeah. See, that shouldn't even exist amongst our people. That could be a goal that we could, like Harper Empress said it last night. They want the kids.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the adults, they're not worrying about breaking the adults. They want the kids. So how about we start with the kids?
Right.
Get the kids from up under their jurisdiction. That's just something
That's
to
what
think
they
about.
doing. Adopting the kid and
Mhm.
having them be their own little personal house prison.
You know what?
House
I'm gonna say this. I'm finna say this. Damn, it just hit my mind, and this gonna offend some people. When I was going through the system, I had a child out of wedlock, so I wasn't married, right? So that means that as the male, you don't have any rights. And that goes over a lot of men's heads when we first have kids. We think because we signed the birth certificate when we was at the hospital, I'm good. No, that just makes you the blood parent. You're not the legal parent. So you can't go to the school when the kid gets of age. You can't request doctor's records. You can't do nothing because you're not the legal parent. You can still pay child support and still sign that birth certificate and not have any legal rights, right? Here's why I'm saying I was looked at like I'm crazy by family members and people of my age group when I was going through that process. Now we live in a time where gay white men are going through the same procedure to adopt our kids. So it was weird when I'm doing it, when I'm standing up fighting the system to get at, because to me, it didn't make sense. And women, it is what it is. We plant the seed in y'all. So we are the spark of life because we give y'all the seed. We plant the seed in y'all. Y'all carry it for 9 months. Y'all deliver the child. Now you got men adopting our children. They're going through the legitimation process. So it was foreign when the real father was going through it. Now you got men from other groups of people who are homosexual adopting your kids. So this all goes back to not having nothing in writing to protect our kids. And I just think that was a perfect entry point to bring that up. This is how the father never has rights. Something happens to the mama. The state takes the child. The father never goes up and claims the child. And so now a gay couple can go claim your child and adopt your child. It's the same process. They first claim rights, then they go through an adoption proceeding. So we've had since the 70s, we've had a good, almost 60-year run of the men not understanding that they don't have legal claim to their child. We abandon it. Without knowing we abandon the child, because again, we're ignorant of the law. We think signing that birth certificate and paying child support gives us legal right, and it doesn't. Now you got a whole new fabricated class of people exposing that reality. That's how 2 gay European males can adopt a quote unquote Negro child. They understand the legitimation process. Anything y'all want to say on that?
Again, have to have our own system in place, own rules, where it's something like, okay, if a child were to lose their mother or father, they do not go to no state. No other people but ours can adopt them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to be fit to adopt. You have to be, you know what I'm saying? It can't just be no bullshit, kind of like what the section was when it came to who was deemed ineligible to be a leader. You can't have no infancies, no idiots, or no dumbness, blindness, deafness, like trying to take care of a child in that situation. And we have to have our certain parameters and standards for that as well. So again, it just comes back down to having a structure and organization that we all agree upon.
And this is going to be a very interesting topic, is because we're talking about healing the man and woman relationship of our people, right? Women have to understand their history too. You couldn't run to the state before 1968.
Right.
You see, it wasn't a thing before 1968. You weren't a citizen. So when we hear about how they broke the family up in the 1970s through housing, and we're going to get into that as we read the housing bill that's buried in this act, right? When we know our history, we got to start looking and say, damn, how was our grandparents banned from restaurants and hotels and public facilities, and then that next generation willingly ran to the state because the state plays the daddy? And that's just interesting because, again, I wasn't born in 1968, but we're looking back at when you hear people talk about how the system destroyed our household. We're in that era now. We're in the late 60s. This is about to occur where the government is about to start splitting up our household. So it's a conversation we got to start having to look at. What did they do? How did they convince our women that it's more profitable for them to partner with the state than partner with the man? And it's probably the same thing that the men were going through back then. They probably had poor opportunity for employment, right? Because you destroyed towns, you destroyed their businesses, right? So women need security. And again, I wasn't living back then, but I'm just saying it's the same complaint that women will have today, right? That, you know, looking for men that earn a certain type of potential, right? And you hear men talk about, you know, the discrimination when they have credentials about getting equal pay for other people from other races, whatever have you, right? But that's interesting that we can go from Jim Crow being alienated by the state to the next generation being completely dependent on the state.
And I think also just going back to the fact, what you were mentioning about the gays being able to go through the whole process of claiming our kids. I know Michelle put in the chat that we have to, you know, put things in place ahead of time. Well, they're already doing that. That's why they're pushing all of these gay right movements and laws and things like that. So 20 years from now, it's going to be probably a common thing. If we don't do anything about it now, it's probably going to be even more of them adopting our kids, you know, because they're accepting this whole gay movement as being just the norm now, knowing that they can't reproduce. So they're putting that in place now, basically. That's in full motion.
Which is, like you said, it's a great topic to discuss, especially like you stated, how we go from one extreme to the other, being completely, like you said, separated, alienated from the government, and now being completely dependent on said government. And it's like, okay, we saw one extreme and how it affected us for the negative. Now we're seeing another extreme of how it affects us for the negative. So you've seen both sides of the spectrum, and both sides of the spectrum show that this government is not for us. So it all goes back to, again, us establishing our own shit, having our own structure, our own rules, our own procedures and policies that are beneficial for our people. No other people, not worried about no other group of people. We're talking specifically about the American, the indigenous American of this land. So I think that's very key, like you stated, so because we're seeing two sides of the spectrum, and we're seeing the negative effects that both sides are having. Okay, you wanted to be included, now you're completely dependent. When you weren't included, we had these issues. So it's just interesting to see the two dynamics play out.
If you can drop one more thing in the chat before we close, Chief Quietwater. I'm just going to share this information because part of going through the valley of death is when you come out on the other side, you know, you have knowledge, wisdom, and experience that you're supposed to give back. Can you put in the chat OCGA 19-7-22, subsection C.
Okay, you're
So,
gonna have to go a little slower or put it in the chat so I can just copy and paste it, please.
and the reason why I'm doing this is because my son was born in the state of Georgia. And so I had to get familiar with Georgia's law when it came to legitimation or obtaining legal rights. And what I found in representing myself on that matter was that it's a financial, legitimation is a financial situation. What do I mean? When you cite to that code, a child cannot inherit from his father in the state of Georgia if you do not claim legal rights. Now, when you listen to the radio shows of our people, they'll promote child support, but what they don't promote is the inheritance. One of the benefits of studying to show yourself approved and doing your own research is when I realized that, that's how they can project by 2053 that this group of people will have zero wealth. Because the generation that was born in the 70s, they've already mathematically calculated that I'm talking about us as a whole, not on an individual. When you add all us up collectively, most of us live below the poverty line, we don't have emergency funds, and we have negative net worths. Not only that, our kids are bastard kids. They no longer use the word bastard, they use the word illegitimate now, which means fatherless, legally. The state is the daddy. That means when that father dies, probate court will intercept anything that that man may have that he wants to give to that child. So I'm throwing that nugget in because there may be somebody that listens to this video that had a child born in the state of Georgia. And again, ignorance to law is how we're losing. They promote child support services to our people. They don't talk about the inheritance part of it. If you have a child born out of wedlock in Georgia, you can't inherit. As the father, you can't pass nothing down to the child. And I just wanted to put that code in there. And you'd be surprised how many of my female cousins, family members, men, most of us, okay, you went on and pulled it up. You got to pull up the code OCGA 19-7-22, subsection C. So you got to go to subsection C. You're looking up case law. You got to go to the actual code. Right, Michelle asked, do you have legal rights or lawful rights? It's going to be legal rights because you're coming up under a state. Remember, the United States government has never recognized Negro, Black, and colored in law. Right here, subsection C. Are you on the 19-7-22? Yep. Okay, go to subsection C. A legitimation petition shall set forth the name, age, and sex of the child, the name of the mother, and if the biological father desires the name of the child to be changed. The new name, if the mother is alive, she shall be named as a party or shall be served and provided an opportunity to be heard as in other civil actions. If there is a legal father who is not the biological father, he shall be named as the party. That's not the right part. You got the wrong subsection C. Go up to the top. All right. Go down. Right here, this C. Scroll up. Hold on, stop right there. All right, you gotta scroll down a little bit more. I need to share my screen so I can pull it up. So I can cite to the exact point. Y'all can share right quick while I pull it up, since we want to pull it up and drop it.
I had stepped away for a minute, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we were just building on the having our own child laws and everything. If y'all want to build on that real quick while I pull this up.
Yeah, I definitely think it starts with us. I think that we need structure to put something together so that we can have the say so over what happens to us, not only our children, but us in general. But it is going to take the meeting of the minds, coming up with the plan, sticking to the plan, and executing to the end.
Nah, I mean, shoot, I agree. I mean, like you said, at the end of the day, it just comes to us establishing our own structure, defining what means to us, what certain terms mean to us as a collective, and then moving forward. Just about being on code, and with that code, it starts with having a structure. And shoot, just pretty much at that, leaving it at that.
All right, I'm finna share my screen. So it was actually subsection D, not C. No big deal. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay, can y'all see my screen? Y'all can see it?
Yeah, now we can.
All right, so I'm gonna highlight this section real quick, and then I'm gonna go back up. So we're still under 19-7-22. Okay, and this is under OCGA, under Georgia code. So 19-7-22, and each state has something similar, right? Each state has its own constitution, so you're gonna have to study to show yourself approved to find out how your state kicking it with illegitimate kids. But subsection D, upon the presentation and filing of a legitimation petition, and after a hearing for which notice was provided to all interested parties, the court may issue an order declaring the biological father's relationship with the child to be legitimate, providing that such order is in the best interest of the child. If such order is issued, here's the key: the biological father and child shall be capable of inheriting from each other in the same manner as if born in lawful wedlock. That's the number one reason you need legal rights to your child as men. A lot of our women don't know this, and a lot of our men don't know this. When you have a baby mama, that child cannot inherit from the father. Anything y'all want to share on that?
No, not really. I mean, I think a lot of people really don't know that. Men in particular, well, women and men. I don't think that a lot of people know that information. I know every state is different, but I think they all kind of follow the same guidelines.
Yeah, I say, and just again, just goes back to studying to show yourself approved. Want to seek out this information, especially if you're trying to build wealth. But I think it just still goes back to the point, really damn whatever their laws say when it comes to how we want to run things, we still have to, again, come back to set up our own structure. Our structure probably wouldn't need to have anything like this. If you are the biological father, then you are the legitimate father. If you wanted to implement something like this would be something we could pull from. But until we actually do those things, it's important to know how to go about and maneuver within this system. But again, I think it just goes back to us really standing up as a collective and saying, okay, damn what you call, I know this is my son, I know this is my daughter, and I want them to inherit anything from me. So damn what your laws are saying. But in order to do that, we have to stand up, have to have that protection element, and have to have a structure in place. So I think that's very key.
Yeah, shout out to the woman that's giving feedback. Copper Empress in the chat, active. The American woman, Empress Vicky. Both of us are just as guilty, if you will, because they get jurisdiction over that child as soon as it comes out the womb. So it's, so we don't have to fight amongst ourselves. Why does the man have to go through? Why does the man have to claim from the state? Well, because the state got jurisdiction through the vital statistics office and the Social Security Administration, because them the first two things that the child is going to get. So yeah, that man does have to go and claim that abandoned vessel. It's as weird as that sounds, it's still commercial. It's still commercial. Even your visitation schedule, it's commerce, it's product, but they replace the word product with a child. But you understand, if you've been through the process, you understand they took our children from us in the hospital. It starts there. This is what the man has to do. It's the lack of communication on a bigger level with us as a people, that we don't understand what the state is doing since the 1960s. That's the only reason I'm bringing this up. You know what I'm saying, to us. It's a very touchy topic because it shows how we're being played on multiple levels, right? So when you see men of the same sex adopting our kids and raising them now, all of this is a result of the crack era, the war on drugs, the civil rights era where the state comes in. So, we just have to sit down and be adults and look at the game that's being played and understand, okay, how do I correct it? We fuck up when we go to the hospital. In short, we fuck up when we go to the hospital and let them deliver that baby. Do y'all know that hospital is a military? Look up the definition of hospital. Hospital is military. So when you go there, you're given jurisdiction. And somebody put in here that we're listed as the informant. What is an informant? If the woman is listed as an informant on the birth certificate, what's the legal definition of informant, Chief Quietwater, if you just want to look that up real quick? I mean, everything they do is due to our ignorance. They're not putting a gun to our head, making us do anything. We consent. We consent to this shit. Yep, American woman said we gave them our children. That's it. That's it. That's it. And we gotta just accept that. And so you gotta fight like hell to get jurisdiction back, because we didn't know. Nobody told us.
Informant. Oh crap. Hold on. An informant is someone any citizen who provides information to police, FBI, or other law enforcement agency. That's not the, okay, hold on. The Black's Law definition, a person who informs or prefers an accusation against another whom he suspects of violating some penal statute.
Okay, come a little back. See if we can drill down a little bit, because we're trying to see what type of informant is the woman when y'all in the hospital and y'all sign that birth certificate. Because when you sign the birth certificate, you're the informant. So we're trying to get a clear understanding of what are you actually doing when you sign that birth certificate.
Let's see. So the informant, when signing a birth certificate, is the person responsible for providing the personal facts of the birth. This is usually the mother, but the father or another adult having knowledge of personal facts that are not medical in nature, such as residence, age, and education of parents, can supply this information.
Okay. So when you sign that birth certificate, you're actually giving over information to vital statistics.
Right.
And so then vital statistics is an agency with under what? A state.
State.
Right. And then the federal government doesn't get its jurisdiction until 6 months later, depending on your state. Now, I'm speaking on Georgia. That child got to be 6 months old before it can get a Social Security card. So the federal government doesn't come in through the Social Security Administration until 6 months old. So every time you sign for one of these documents and attach it to the child, you're given different jurisdiction. And we didn't understand that.
Mhm.
Understand? And that's the downside, is as you're learning this, it's always 10% of the people do 90% of the work. When you're a part of that 10%, 9 out of 9, the other 9 people that you come across, they're not gonna know what the fuck you're talking about. That's why shout out to Copper Empress. Every time we build, it's just refreshing to be around like-minded people who know what the fuck going on out here. It's not normal. 9 out of 10 people don't know what the fuck going on. So sometimes you feel like a round peg in a square hole trying to fit in, because you up on information, or you got light, and most people are in the dark. But we got a serious problem with our children. We should not be in the dark 60 years into being integrated with what they're doing with our kids in these hospitals.
Yeah.
We should know this inside and out. And we're willfully giving our rights
Right.
to these different entities. So when you furnish that information, and see, you don't know what the small reading says on that birth certificate. They just gave you a general legal definition, right?
Yeah.
You really don't know what the small language is on that document.
Definitely true.
So good, Bill, and shout out to all the activity from the women, from the mothers in the chat. These are conversations that we need to have as we move forward and look at the different rights that these Indian tribes have. If you already a part of a tribe, kudos to you. You know, if you're organized and have your laws, you know, specified, you know, and you let the United States government know this is what we declare. But if you don't have it specified and you're a part of that group of people that have to go by what they deem, that's a problem. That's a direct violation of self-preservation, that you can procreate with another person of the opposite sex, and you got to adhere to another group of people's rules based on what child abuse is, what child custody, things of that nature. That it makes no sense.
Right. I am definitely on board. Definitely a good build tonight. And thank you to everybody in the chat. You muted. Oh.
Yes, sir. Salute to everybody in the chat. Great build tonight. And we'll continue. We'll continue next week.